Hi there, I thought I'd talk a little bit tonight about victim consciousness, being a victim, and gets a bad press out there, right? Being a victim means you're not taking responsibility for your life, means you're making excuses for where you are at, and we should reject victim consciousness in order to live a successful life. And there is a level in which that is true. But it's also true that claiming one's victimhood is entirely consistent with being personally responsible. In fact, when it comes to healing trauma, it's required. The way I see it is that owning your victimhood is the first step in beginning to heal. When I look at my own experience of healing, I was for a long time in denial. I had a belief that my childhood was great, that there was nothing whatsoever wrong with anything my parents did or anything else about my environment growing up. And I was of that belief all through my youth and all through my 20s. I had great parents and there's nothing wrong with me. In fact, I can remember running an event once and I nominated the national charity in Britain, the NSPCC, as the recipient for the funds of this charity event because I felt that I'd had this wonderful childhood and I wanted for other people to experience such great childhoods and as mine, and if there's a charity out there doing that, then I want to contribute to it, or at least there's a charity out there seeking to have children have better lives, then I want to contribute to it. And when I stopped drinking, when I started to look within, actually, I'm going to revise what I said earlier. I don't think step one of healing is owning your victimhood. I think step one of healing is owning, or at least in my case, it was owning my own feelings. I had to learn to be able to say, I am sad, I am fearful, I am angry, and begin to associate that with sensations in the body. Begin to come into myself, come into my body, own my feelings. That was step one in my journey to come out of denial. I'm not this guy who's fine, whose childhood was fine, whose life is fine. I have feelings. And the next step after that was not only do I have feelings right now in the present, but I have a history. And in my history, I also had feelings. There were times as a child I was sad. There was times as a child I was angry. And once I started to explore my feelings in childhood, I could recognize that I was a victim in certain circumstances. That I was a victim of abuse, that I was a victim of other people's anger, I was a victim of other people's narcissism, I was a victim of other people's emotional distance. I was a victim of all of those things. And so perhaps that was step two. Step one was learning to feel. And as part of that, accepting that I had a feeling existence as a child. And the next step of that was to begin to accept that I had been a victim of certain circumstances. And where I think people have it right about victim consciousness is that for some people that's as far as they get. I was a victim of this, I was a victim of that, I am now a victim of this, I'm now a victim of that. And people can get stuck there. And they're not in denial, of certain experiences, but if we stay there, we can't heal. And we may be taking full responsibility to get that far, but if we're not deepening and exploring what it meant to be a victim in those situations, then we're going to get no further, and we're going to live in a world of stories about ourselves without really feeling the pain of what it meant to be a victim of X or Y experience as a child. That's where the healing accelerates. It's when we allow ourselves to feel into buried pain, to express buried anger, to acknowledge buried fear. And when we can allow ourselves to feel those deeper feelings, those buried emotions, eventually, and this can take time, not always, sometimes it can happen more quickly, we can get to the tears of grief. We can grieve our victimhood. And the way in is the way out, right? Going deep into our victimhood by feeling it all, by getting to the tears. We release it from the system. We release it from our own physiology, from our own bodies, from the cells, where it's all held. The issues are in the tissues, where we allow that all to release. And now we're no longer a victim. They're simply experiences. We don't need to label. We don't need to have our identity wrapped up with those experiences. They're simply events that at the time we were unable to fully experience. We were unable to, and for the traumatic events, we were unable to grieve. We re-presence those moments, those experiences. We allow ourselves to grieve. And we resolve, we heal, we become whole again. There's no victim to identify with. In effect, we've neutralized those experiences. And so we move beyond victim consciousness. We become alive and vital, and we have no need. We have no need to identify as victims anymore. And so this is why I say that victim consciousness, identifying as a victim, is part of taking full responsibility for our lives. But to get stuck there is to abrogate our responsibility. It's to remain a permanent victim is to remain unhealed. So I don't agree. I don't agree that being in victim mode or adopting victim consciousness is a cop-out from life, not taking responsibility. I don't believe that's true. If and only if that is a way station to deeper healing. And in that case, it's vital. It's part of taking self-responsibility. Hope that makes sense. Wanted to share.